Welcome back to Continuing the Conversation, where we bring you authentic AI insights. Last week, we tackled the copy and paste trap, why accepting AI's first draft kills your credibility. But there's a deeper current under that conversation, and it's everywhere right now. Prompt worship. People are chasing magic prompts like secret spells. You've seen it, the one prompt that made me 10K, or this viral prompt will change your business overnight. But here's the truth. MIT released a study showing the more we rely on AI prompts, the less our brains actually engage. We're not validating AI output anymore. We're outsourcing our thinking. So today, unpacking the prompt worship trap, why magic words are making us mentally lazier and what to do instead. I'm Chelene Martin, AI enthusiast, business strategist, and someone who's seen a lot of really smart people sabotaging themselves with lazy AI habits. And joining me as always is Rob, the CEO of CharmIQ. Rob, are you ready to break one more bad habit today?
Let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. So let's start here. People are treating prompts like magic spells. They find a viral prompt on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok, copy it exactly, and expect miracles in their completely different context. What's going on psychologically here? And why do we crave the shortcut instead of learning how to think with AI?
Boy, oh boy, is this a noodle scratcher.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me a couple of years ago before all of this stuff started to happen, what was going to be the number one thing that was going to keep happening, I would not say people sharing, like you said, I made 10K with this prompt things. Like, it's insane. So yes, let's break this one down a little bit. There's always the endorphin hit of the get quick rich scheme. How many other of these viral style things get clicked on all the time, right? You know, with everything that's going on in everyone's life, they do want an easy answer. There's nothing wrong with that. We all want the easy button. I remember Office something that had the easy button?
Yeah.
We even got one from my father for Christmas a couple of years ago.
Yep.
We all like the easy button, and just somehow magically solving your day through a single prompt seems like a really, really good idea, but it does not work. And when we really get down to this whole thing, there's no magic behind these things. It is just communication. And if you think about it, there's no magic one prompt other than things like saying please and thank you. As we always learn from our parents, what are the magic words? They are still please and thank you. And other than those two, there is no other analog in our lives. And I was trying to think about that, because again, the way I think about this is like we're trying to get to the point where we're talking to machines, but those machines behave as humans, right? So is there anything that you can say to anyone that you know that works in all cases that it's just somehow magic? And the answer is, again, no. Other than, again, like, hey, I'm here, or like, I'm listening, or like, please and thank you. There is no magic. So I think we should all put on that like incredulity whenever you read one of those. Like, there is no magic that is going to solve all these.
No. And that MIT study, honestly, it woke me up. It stopped me in my tracks. Like when I was reading it after you sent it to me, and I was like, whoa, they scanned people's brains while using ChatGPT and found engagement dropped by nearly half. And 83% of users couldn't even recall a single sentence they'd written minutes earlier. Meanwhile, the brain-only writers had no problem, reciting what they wrote. And the wild part was, even after they stopped using ChatGPT, their brains were still under-engaged. I mean, they literally trained themselves to think less. So when we talk about prompt worship, it's not just bad productivity, it's neural disengagement. And what's actually happening to our brains is crazy. And how does that tie into what you call context management?
There's a whole lot here to unpack. So I have a young developer on my team, and he's currently going through that transition from individual contributor to manager. And what's interesting is we can use the LLMs, the coding tools and whatnot, like as his staff. So we're trying to teach him how to manage that staff of agents that are now working for him.
Mm-hmm.
My developer thought by delegating tasks to somebody else or something else, he didn't have to think about those tasks anymore. He just thought he could come up with a list, farm out that list, and then that list would get done.
Right.
And as all of us know, especially if you've managed people, that is not how the world works. You, to a large degree, until you've become really familiar with those workers, You take on all of that mental load of not only the task of managing them, but whatever that task is. In other words, by becoming a manager, you don't get to release all of the cognitive work that you have to do to understand the task, to understand its complexities and everything else. My young dude, he just handed the list to the dude and he's like, well, why isn't it getting done? And he was mentally disengaging from the process. And I think that that's what the MIT study is really all about. When you are actively working on a process and you have collaborators with you, regardless whether they're people or machines or whatever, if you're active in that process, then you're not letting go of any of that. You're keeping all of those threads in your brain and you're walking through it. But what I find people doing, especially with LLMs, especially if you're not accustomed to doing that, if you've never played this role of a manager, then you're not in that mindset. You don't get to let all those threads go. And what I was telling my young developers, it's actually now harder for the work because not only do you have to keep all of the threads in your head, you have to think about all of the ways in which that individual who's doing the work is going to screw it up. And you have to think about how to help and teach them and how to make sure that the tasks are the right size for their abilities and how to help grow them and all of these other tasks that you get on top of it. So I just wanted to bring that in because specifically I'm going through that thing and I really, it resonated with me as I was going through it. But getting back to the MIT check, I think it's just that. If you're just simply barking orders at the thing and you're waiting for a response, you're not thinking through what are all the steps? How do I think about this? What are the pitfalls that are going to happen? Everything else. So I think for those of us who are using the LLMs as cognitive partners, we are working together with them. And I find myself doing this. I am not letting go of any of the threads. If anything, I have more threads and I'm the dudes are just filling in little gaps or providing me with extra info, just as when I'm working with other people.
Yeah. And to make this real for people, every day I see it out there. This prompt, the 10K prompt is everywhere, right? People click on it. They want to, who doesn't want to make 10K in a day? Right. So, and then you suddenly copy and paste that prompt 1,000 times. People try it word for word and nothing happens. And I've even tested a few of those viral prompts myself without the right context. They completely fail. So why do these so-called proven prompts fail when we're just copying and pasting them, once they leave the original person's situation?
Yeah. So this is a fantastic question that goes back through this whole series that we've been going through, which is it's all about the context. It's all about what are you doing? Are you just barking an order and it's just you're hoping that you get your latte in the exact order that you want? Or are you building a framework in which all of the context is there? The type of questions you're getting, the type of answers that you're getting, what type of info are you looking for or not looking for? All of the standard things that go around that. Mm-hmm. So what typically happens is you have somebody who is doing that thought work, right? They are setting this stuff up. They do have a structure and they finally find the prompt that gets them unbroken. And I would say the same thing happens again with humans. When you're talking to your partner and you're not seeming to get through and then you finally say something and then they finally understand. And so we have this analog with people, but we've never then said, you've never taken that as the magic prompt and applied it in other cases. Mm-hmm. Or if you have, you realize that it doesn't really do the same thing because again, it was all the pieces that led up to that prompt being successful. So again, we're all in the mindset that we can just take this magic thing and use it. Mm-hmm. And then even if that were true, you still need all the context that is relevant to you and your particular environment to even have any hope of making that magic prompt, if such a thing exists, do the work that it needs to do. So we always go back to our standard examples, right? I always use trip planning. If you just go in and say plan me a trip to Spain, that's not useful at all because who am I? What's my budget? What's my time frame? What are the goals of the trip, right? So all of that context is super relevant. And I would just say for some of the people who are writing these magic prompts, they forget the fact that they should do all that. The usual thing here, people just want a simple answer. So they're just oh, it must have been the part where I said, plan me the trip and with 3 destinations or whatever magic they've sprinkled in.
Yeah, I know. I love something you've said before that really resonated with me early on in my relationship with LLMs is that prompts should be a conversation and not an order, right? Not the drive-through window thing I always remember that one, right? So a conversation, not barking in order. And there's such a fine line between prompt engineering, which is a skill, and prompt worship, which is literally blind faith. So, what's the real difference here? And how can someone know that they've crossed from communicating with AI into just worshiping the words?
Yeah, so this one is funny, and I'm glad you phrased it the way that you did, because again, all that we're doing, this is communication. This is basically communication 101. You can't just go, and I'll use relationships again. Hopefully we've all read one or two relationships books. If you've never read, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, if you've never read the 10 Love Languages, if you've never read these books, I highly encourage you to do them.
Me too.
Because what you'll notice is that even if you go through there's no magic prompt in those books, right? There's no one answer that works for a particular thing. And hopefully what those books are teaching you is that it's about the communication. Like, you have an idea in your head of something that you're trying to communicate, but there's never been a book that just literally says these 5 words.
Right.
Again, these things should trigger something in our head when we see these magic prompts for talking with the machines. Like, there's no one thing, because again, that's not how communication works. Like, there's all this context. And talking about prompt engineering, the point of prompt engineering is that whole picture, right? So, like, again, the context you're bringing in, what things in what order, do you start off with a question or do you start off with a context? Like, that's prompt engineering. Like, how do you think about the information to bring in?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I see it all the time, and I see it all around me, especially with students, right? Because ChatGPT and LLMs are so powerful. They do feel like magic, right? Once you first start using them, write me a 500-page essay on Macbeth. You're like, and it just starts to go to work, right?
Yep.
And then, the first thing I say to students is like, does that sound like you? Are those words you would say? Is that within your context? Is that within your level, right? So I get the spell of seeing how it all unfolds and how easy it feels. But then it's like really having them understand that there's a relationship here, and it's a partnership, it's a collaboration. So how do we untrain the worship habit for people who have been conditioned to hunt for the perfect prompt? Or how do we retrain our brains to use AI to think better instead of letting it think for us? And what does that shift look like in daily practice?
Yeah, a bunch of great questions there. So I have a hard time understanding how this became a thing because it doesn't happen anywhere else in our life. So I'll give you just that as a reminder. Every time you're just looking for the magic prompt, just remember that can't work. Like, it can't work, right? Like, fundamentally, there's no way that there's some magic prompt without any context, without any knowledge of what you're doing or who you are or in what environment is this operating, that's going to work. Like, so I'll just say flat out, like, just remember there's no magic here. Like, okay. So now, given that, well, what do you have to start doing? Go back through the list of things we always talk about, which is don't start with a question. Start with a statement about what you're trying to do. Who are you? What environment are you in? Are you in school? What grade? What things are you also learning and teaching or being taught? What's your skill level? What are the things you enjoy? What do you like? Like, what are you looking to get out, using Chelene's example, what are you looking to get out of the Macbeth essay? Like, right? Like, what is the topic? How does this work? Like, is it more focused on the characters or the dialogue or the language at the time? Like, what about it are you trying to get out?
Yes.
And these all come back to critical thinking, which is you have to put on that critical thinking hat and you have to think about thinking about problems. Like, and I know that unfortunately somewhere along the line, we're never taught that education isn't just a set of steps you follow. It's a set of ideas that you put in your head that you run through these processes. So, like, how does critical thinking work? Like, you were just taught like ABC, and it's not. Like, maybe that's where we get this magic thing from, because in school we're just like, do A, then B, then C. And again, it's not like that. The world just doesn't work that way. You have to come up with a process for whereby you go through these steps. So, as we always say, stay in conversation mode. Don't bark orders at your machine and expect it to just work. Spend your time building context. As I always say when I'm working on my prompts and my exercises, one of my last things that I do with my dudes are like, what information did we get that's new here? Like, what can we add to the context that we can just bring into the next thing?
Yeah. So
ask it to challenge you, right? Like, all of those kind of things.
Right. So maybe instead of like having a whole Notion folder or Google Doc full of favorite prompts, right, we evolve and become a context creator, right? Building those context docs. I know I have a few of them, depending on what hat I'm wearing, but like, I have a context doc that's just who I am, right? In my life, personally and professionally, things I'm working on, goals. So I can pull in those documents into, Charm and what I'm working on. So my dudes know exactly where I'm at and what I'm working on. So like delete your prompt library and build context documents, like you said, right? You've already sort of said that. And I wanted to reiterate that because that's so
Yeah.
important.
And I would say one other thing, which is if you do have a prompt library, sit down with your dudes and say, like, help, how to best say this, have it help you understand what are similar between those prompts, right? So like you do this with people, like if you're picking out clothes or if you're picking out furniture, like you may not have the vocabulary to understand what are the similarities between different types of furniture. So like you go to the furniture store and you're like, oh, I like that chair and I like that sofa. And somebody comes to you and they're like, oh, that's mid-century modern. And you're like, oh, wait, that's interesting. There's a group of things that I like. So I would say the same thing. So if you do have that prompt library, sit down with your dude and say, well, help me understand why I picked all these things. And it might come back with, it's like, you're looking for things that solve these type of things. And it's like, great. Well, then now that says something about me. So like add more about you, use that to help you like come up with your own set of prompts that are relevant for your situation.
Yeah, I love how you brought it into that design factor. I have a really good friend who's redesigning her kitchen right now, and she feels extremely overwhelmed.
Yes.
Right. And so her and her husband sat down with ChatGPT. They took a photo of their existing kitchen and said, redesign this in a more modern way. Well, funny enough, the images that were coming back were very modern. Right. And that is not their style at all. And she's like, oh, I hate all of this.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what did you tell it to do? And she said, I just wanted to modernize my kitchen. Well, you use the word modern,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to do that. It's not going to give you the French country or the farmhouse kitchen
Right.
with the farmhouse sink, right? And she was like, I didn't even think I needed to. I don't even know what my style is. Well, she started working with her partner, her AI partner, telling it, giving it pictures of what she liked, and it turns out she likes a French country kitchen. So
That's super important. I'll just say, so I think this is like a really nice place to land with this discussion is use this as an exercise, right? So, because we don't always have ideas of what our style, whether that's our written style or our visual style. So your dudes can absolutely help you with that. Because again, we just might not have the words. They just might not be in our vocabulary to understand where that is. And you can have modern country style. And that's interesting. But again, think about how the words affect the context, shape what the words mean. So yeah, that one's a genius. Love that.
Yeah. So I love how this connects back to the copy and paste trap that we talked about last week, because it's not just about bad prompts. It's about what happens when we let our brains kind of go idle. And the MIT study should be a wake up call for anyone using AI daily, because I think everyone has a little bit of these bad habits in there because they're easy to develop at first. So we can either use AI to amplify our intelligence, or we can quietly let it replace it, right? So here's your challenge for the week. Delete that prompt library or use it to create a context document instead, right? One that captures your goals, your tone, your thinking process, and build from your brain outward, right? Your creativity will thank you, and so will your neurons. So Rob, thanks for another great conversation on how to think with AI and not through it. And if you'd like me to follow up, on this topic, let us know. Let us know what you got out of it. Let us know what resonated with you or what other bad habits you might have, and we can help you overcome those things. So before we sign off, Rob, is there anything else for this to put this conversation to bed?
Well, I will say to everyone, happy holidays as we are in that season. Thank you, Chelene, for being as festive as you could possibly be. And I would just say to everyone else, again, reapply what hopefully you learned through your human interactions with your machine interactions and create that feedback loop. So if you're starting to learn through your interactions with your LLM how to talk to people, do that with your partner. Learn, maybe ask them, like, what types of style do you like, or what's your communication style? Again, let's communicate more, especially during this really strange time that we are in as a society. Let's talk more. Let's be less isolated. So yeah, that's my only takeaway.
I love that. Because this is the time of season, right, where we get together with family and friends, and we should, be communicating, having our phones be put away, and having more conversation, because they love what you said earlier. We need to treat AI, the LLMs, our dudes, like humans, how we would talk to a human, whether they're a friend, a partner, a coworker, or a direct report. And communication is key to all successful relationships. I say that to my kids over and over again. My son goes out for the night with friends, and I always remind him, make good decisions, and communication is key to your success, meaning communicate with your mother on where you're going and who you're with. So same thing is true with AI. So I always say, AI is there to make you better, stronger, faster, and not to replace you. So all important things to remember in life and in working with AI. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And we'll see you next week. Have a great holiday.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.